Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. I am Nicci the Great coming at you again with another message. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about I have COVID, where is God? I have COVID, where is God? If you have not already, please subscribe and hit that little notification bell below so you can be made aware of any new videos that I post. Let's go on ahead and get into it. If I start coughing, I'm so sorry. I am getting over COVID myself. So I'm trying to get my voice to come back and it stays dry a lot. But I had contracted COVID a little bit ago and it made me very, 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 very sick. And so I was on my sick bed for about a good strong week, and any excuse me, symptom you could imagine, I suffered from it, okay? It was a really, really terrible experience. I have a newfound respect for COVID, but I didn't want this video to focus solely on COVID. I wanted to focus on the message of what happens when the saints get COVID and where is God, all right? One thing that kind of baffles my mind is that when believers get sick or they contract something really bad or something bad happens to them, it's really easy to kind of point fingers at them and to accuse them of doing something wrong, or accuse them of their faith not being where it needs to be, or to assume that we are being punished for something, or to assume that our God is not real because something bad happened to us or because we contracted something. And so I want to expel that notion, and it can't be anything further from the truth. And I wanted to share a light on an old story in scripture. Probably one of the oldest stories in scripture is of a man by the name of Job. Some of you might already be familiar with him, but he is a gentleman that was the richest person in the world at his time. And some things had transpired with Job, and he ended up becoming very sick. He lost his family. He lost all his possessions. And he basically ended up on Skid Row with a real bad skin disease. And so the story goes on about his friends. Excuse me, his friends asked him, you have done something wrong. Go on ahead and confess what you did so you can get the curse of God off of you. And so I encourage you to read that story for yourself. This video is not about that story, but there are some things that I want to draw from that story that is very important to myself, and also important to why bad things happen to us believers, okay? Whether it's a sickness or whether it's some type of other trial or tribulation or circumstance or anything, there are three things that we need to keep in mind during the storm, during the spiritual storm, or during the thing that's being transpired, okay? The first thing is to remember that we are going through a test, okay? We are going through a test. And with the testing that we are going through, there has got to be, the test has got to be authorized, okay? It's got to go through a series of checks and balances. Nothing, spirits and negativity and our adversary cannot penetrate our lives without going through the proper channels, okay? So in the story of Job, Satan had to come through God first to get to Job. So he already had permission, and God had already granted Satan permission to hinder Job, because God had 100% confidence in this test that Job was fixing to go through. All right. And so just like us, we go through a series of tests. We go through, there's a checks and balances that the kingdom of darkness has got to go through before they can penetrate us. So even though I'm just now coming out of that whole COVID thing, some of you watching right now are either, excuse me, already on your way into something or already in something right now. And I want to remind you that this is only a test. And one thing about a test is that it's going to continue happening until you pass the test. So with this test, when you are in between a rock and a hard place, when, excuse me, I'm sorry. A little side note, I haven't made a video in a while because my voice is still shot. And so I'm going to bring it down a little bit and hopefully I won't cough so much. But back to a test. One thing about the test is remember that you're inside of a test, okay? And remember that you want to develop a good a spiritual intelligence of what's going on around you, okay? So in the middle of my sickness that I had of COVID, and I was really, really sick, I said to the Lord, Lord, I don't know what you're doing. I know that this sickness did not just come to me without your authority. I know it had to come through you for your permission first. And I said, Lord, just take care of me during the test. You see, just because you're going through the test doesn't mean that you can't ask for help. I said, just because you're going through the test does not mean you can't ask for help. It doesn't mean that you can't ask for encouragement. It doesn't mean that you can't encourage yourself. And if you see somebody else going through a test, you give them the same thing that you would want if you were going through a test. All right. So while you're in a test, it's okay to ask for help. On my sick bed, I asked, Lord, I ask you to help me. I don't know how I got here. I don't know why I'm here, but I trust you, Lord. I ask you to help me with my symptoms. I need this, I need that. And God, he made a way for me. The second thing is it's a faith and a trusting, it's a faith and a trusting situation. It's a thing where the hardship that you're going through is giving you an opportunity to trust God more, to have more faith in him. And that's the reason for faith. Faith is here to keep us moving. Faith is there to ease our fears. Faith is there to remind us, to reassure us that God is still there. And with these situations, in a way, it's healthy for us to come against these things, because what it does is it re-solidifies our relationship. It strengthens our relationship that we have in God. It reminds us of how small we are and how big he is. And it gives us an opportunity, another opportunity, a reason to tell other people about the goodness of God. You see, when we're evangelizing and telling people about the goodness of God, it's kind of weird how you'll be telling people how great God is, how wonderful he is, how phenomenal he is, but you don't have a personal story. You don't have your own testimony. All you have is scripture, and that is wonderful. But a lot of times people's biggest sermon they can hear is what you've experienced, especially people that are familiar with you, people that know you intimately, okay? So the story of Job teaches us these 3 lessons. It teaches us about the test. It teaches us about having faith and trusting in God. It also reveals to us, by going through a situation it reveals to us who God is. It reveals to us where he is. It reveals to us God himself, or something about God, something about his character. If I hadn't have gotten sick, I probably wouldn't have been able to see how things that seem so small and minute to me, he took care of. How the smallest little things that I didn't believe someone would do, they would do because of God. And that's how he reveals small intricacies. He reveals small things about himself in these hardships, in these circumstances, in these dealings that we have. And so I just wanted to share that video with you. I'm not sure exactly who this message is for. I just wanted to get on here and tell you that even though we as believers contract COVID, God is still in the midst. He still sits high and he looks low, and he is still in control. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am Nicci the Great, and together we are growing, sharing, and thriving.